V Rising has seen a lot of change over its lifespan, and we're about to get the 1.1 update, which will likely dramatically change the game yet again. Today, we're going to discuss what you can do now to prepare for the update. Now, it's still unknown how exactly the meta will change, as in which spells and abilities or stats will be superior to others. But there are some constants we can focus on now that will pretty much be guaranteed to stay. First and foremost is taking advantage of multiple weapons. We are about to get 3 new weapons added to our already diverse roster, all of which have their special use cases and also disadvantages. For about the first, 500 hours of playtime, I exclusively used the mace and axes. At the time it was fine because everyone was learning the game, but at this point, a lot of the dedicated player base that still plays consistently, they all run 8 weapons comfortably and will just dominate new or returning players in 1.1. To remedy this, I'd recommend getting comfortable now on at least 5 weapons. Now, there's dozens of weapon combos you can perform using multiple weapons, but I'll just put some here in the background footage you can watch. This won't be all of them, but it'll give you a good idea of why it's important to run more than just 1 or 2 weapons. There will be 14 weapons total with the new additions in 1.1. Each has 2 unique abilities and a primary attack. Now, this means you have 28 abilities to pick from, of which you can have access to 16 on your hotbar with 8 weapons. And of course, 8 primary attacks. Now, someone with access to 16 weapon abilities going up against someone with like 2 or 4 will just dominate simply because they have more options at any given moment. For all you Scholar players typing in the comments that you don't need multiple weapons, the first thing is I don't think you're going to have as much fun. There's just a flow to the gameplay that you get the more weapons you add to your hotbar. But there's also a new feature in 1.1 called weapon coatings. And it looks like they scale off of spell power, and you really don't want to miss out on them. When running endgame content, I think it'll be really impactful to run multiple coatings on multiple weapons. And this goes for PvP and PvE. You can do some pretty unique and fun things. So start thinking about not just the weapons you'll run, but also their infusions and what weapon coatings you'll try. Next, we'll discuss some of the best locations for your castle on both PvP and PvE servers. For map locations, I'm going to be using this website called Map Genie, which is a pretty good tool. It's a little bit outdated though, but it's good to show you where waygates are, where castle locations are, and some other resource nodes. But today we're just going to be looking at castle locations. Now, before I dive into like which one's best or which ones are terrible, there's sort of a general rule of thumb. You want to have a castle, and this goes for PvP and PvE. First of all, you want to have a large plot. You want to have it nearby to points of interest. So like mining caves or farms or good farming spots. And on PvP servers, you ideally want a location with 2 plateaus and 1 ramp entrance. So a good example of that is this one right here in Farbane, and this one as well in Western Farbane. You can see it has 1 ramp leading up, and then it goes all the way back to a 2nd ramp. Now what this allows you to do is funnel players into one predictable choke, and you can make this highly defensible. Now, I don't know if they're going to change how castle mechanics work in terms of like staircase blocking or door frame health bars. If you didn't know, door frame health bars, it's like bugged. They have like infinite health, which is ridiculous. So people will just stack like, I don't even know, 100 door frames here, which is just ridiculous. I hope they make door frames like paper. But anyways, depending on how they change it, doesn't really matter. You're going to want one entrance, and you're going to want a second plateau, and you're going to want a lot of surface area. Now, this one's a little bit out of the way, but it is relatively close to get up into Silverlight, and you do have a sulfur mine nearby. So that's just one example, but yeah, in the early game, there are a couple interesting ones in Farbane. There's another one here, which is the same concept. It's just a little bit smaller of space to work with. And if you can't have, if you can't get a castle plot, say they're all taken, if you can't get one of these that has 2 plateaus, then try to find one that's 1 plateau with 1 entrance. Like one of these. And sometimes they have some weird spots you can like bat form in the back, but it doesn't really matter. In terms of like breaching a castle, you want to make your one area highly defensible where the golem is going to be knocking at the door. Another concept to keep in mind is castle stacking. Now, if you haven't played the game since like early access release, back in the day, castle stacking was like onion layering your plot with multiple castle hearts and multiple walls. So say you had like this plot, you'd have one castle heart back here and one like over here and one here, and you just make varying layers of defense, and it's a little ridiculous, but castle stacking is sort of like the spiritual successor to that. Now what that means is you have 2 castles. This isn't a good example of it, but actually I'll go to a better example of it. Let's see. This is like the prime location for castle stacking. So say you are on a duo server or a squad server, and you want to have a really powerful setup, and you want to have your castles together. Well, in a location like this, you can have this southern plot be your main castle, and this one be just kind of like, I don't know, your farm or whatever. It doesn't really matter, but the important thing here is to have your servants for this castle right here in this area. So that way, when an enemy team is trying to siege your main castle, you have not only your main castle servants here, but you can also use these servants, and they will aggro and fight, and you can use this door to, you know, have safety. So it just makes it much more defensible. Another good example of a double stack is this plot right here in Center Dunley. You can knock out the trees here, and it's all sunlight, so it's basically like a free sun pit, and that makes it really hard to raid during the day. And of course you have the servants fighting, so that one's really, really good. Other like S tier locations are this one, we call it Peanut. Same concept, 1 ramp, 2 plateaus. This is the one that my clan prefers, just because it's really close to Mortium, and that's where you farm. That's like the end game farm right now, right? So you can just run your loot back here. It's really easy. There's no like castle stack. We don't have anywhere to like run loot to. We don't grab any of these, but you could. If you wanted to run this castle, you could run this one as well with a duo or on your squad. This is another 1 entrance ramp, although this is a little bit scuffed having 2. So you'd probably just sun pit this. Actually, people right now like use staircases and door frames, which is garbage. The new zone is going to be located in the northwest part of the map. So locations like this Silverlight double stack, and this is another one of those that's like double stack light, right? It's you can't have 2 servants fighting for one breach spot. However, you can run loot from this castle to this castle. But this location, these 2 double stacks, this one here, this double stack, you know, some like this one here, same concept. This one's really scuffed, but basically what you don't want is you don't want an area like this where a golem can just come in and breach, and you don't have like a perfect place to staircase block and make a desirable entrance for yourself. And you really don't want a field where golems can come from here and here at the same time, or, you know, it's really scuffed. You want to control where the fighting happens, so you can fight with your servants and kind of fight on your own terms. In terms of PvE locations, the like best location in the game since pre-release was this plot right here in Silverlight. It's just massive. You just have so much space to work with, and you have a really good natural environment, and it's kind of obscured by this river, and you have a nice bridge to cross over. So that location's really good. This one has a lot of space as well, and varied topography. You have like a waterfall here that looks really nice, and this big like cliff area, and 2 entrances with a bridge, and it's sort of like a little cove here. There's only patrols that go here, so that looks really nice. Other PvE locations that I've enjoyed building castles in are this one in Dunley, northeastern Dunley. This one's incredible for, especially if your server has like no height limit, because you can build up to, I don't know, 5-6 stories, and the view from the top, from that high point, you can see deep into Cursed Forest, you can see deep into Mortium, you can see really far into Dunley, and you can even see a little bit of Gloomrot as well. And you have a nice little view of the village here, and it's, you know, it's not indefensible. Like, you can make a defensible castle here if you wanted like an RP type castle on a PvP server. Yeah, this one isn't a bad candidate. The most important decision you will make is which server to play on. Before I get into server settings and types though, I feel the need to warn new players or returning players about official servers. These servers are pretty much always infested with just the most fetid type of human being. You will almost certainly experience getting teamed on, people raiding your castle while you're offline, griefing, toxicity, racism, you know, everything. And there's basically zero oversight from any admin of any sort. They're completely lawless servers, and there are a lot of people that take advantage of that. If I could say one thing to a new player, it's just absolutely stay away from official servers. So what server do you play on then? Well, in terms of server settings, we now have 3 distinct difficulty modes in relaxed, normal, and brutal. Relaxed mode is pretty much what you'd expect. You'll very rarely encounter a challenge on this setting, and it's designed for people who don't really want to think about the combat in the game and want to explore other avenues such as castle building or roleplay. Normal mode is the default difficulty setting intended for most players. V-Rising isn't a particularly difficult game, save for a few specific boss encounters, but this game mode will still give you an amount of challenge, and the bosses won't immediately fall over like on relaxed mode. In terms of PvP servers, you will lose a significant amount of durability in your gear when defeated, so that is something to keep in mind. And then there's brutal mode, my personal preference. It's not only more difficult in terms of boss damage and health, but also increases their level by 3 and introduces brand new mechanics to the fights. This mode will pose a challenge to most players, and killing Brutal Dracula has sort of become like a rite of passage, as you experience extra phases of the fight that are pretty difficult, and any damage taken is extremely significant. What I would recommend for most players is to try to find a server that features normal mode settings, as in like health and damage, but with brutal mode mechanics. This way you can experience the boss fights without them 1 or 2-shotting you, but you still get all the extra mechanics that they've added in brutal mode. As far as PvE, PvP, and roleplay servers are concerned, they're sort of merging together in a way in the 1.1 update. We will be getting a few new features like dueling flags and arena modules for a castle that give us an opt-in format for PvP. If you're wary of starting on a PvP server, I'd recommend a PvP Lite server. One where there will be server events featuring PvP you can participate in, without the danger of losing your durability or items. Now, many roleplay servers I'm sure will host some sort of like PvP events or tournaments or duels, whatever. And you can also join a server called V Arena, which is a custom server I have a separate video on that spawns you in with max level gear and spell jewels, allowing you to test and practice your builds in duels or mini games with basically zero barrier to entry. The last thing I want to cover is settings. By default, your action bar will be assigned to your 1 through 9 keys. I'd recommend finding good keybinds that you're comfortable with before spending too much time getting muscle memory with bad keybinds. Another setting that's really important is changing the toggle equip mode setting. This setting basically allows you to unequip your weapons from your action bar, so you just have your claws out. And you definitely want to turn this off. You don't want to be that guy that's caught out with only his claws. You're just gonna look like an idiot. Additionally, I recommend turning off, or at the very least turning down, the camera shake setting. It just serves as more visual clutter in a game already loaded with important visual cues. If you like camera shake though, keep it on, whatever, it's sort of a preference. I'd also recommend turning off motion blur and depth of field. This video is sort of directed towards players who are new to the game or thinking of returning after a long break. So thanks for hanging around. Keep an eye out for more videos covering the 1.1 update, as I'll be posting more and more as we approach that April 28th release date. For now, take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one.